Here we go. It's another episode of Full Court Press. I'm Dave Johnson, Clint Consor, and it is our great pride and pleasure to welcome the voice of the NBA, Basketball Hall of Famer, ABC, ESPN, and voice of the Knicks, Mike Breen. And Mike, we'll just start out what we're all thinking about each other. How you doing and how you getting through right now?
You know, like everybody, just hunkered down, doing everything they tell me to do, and hoping and praying that this turns soon. It's obviously been quite the roller coaster ride, guys. Both, you hear so many just heartbreaking stories and people devastated, both tragically, financially, but then you also see the other part, the power of the human spirit and some of the amazing things that people are doing for others today, the kindness and the caring. So it's an emotional roller coaster, but everybody's been so strong together, and hopefully we'll get out of this soon.
And before we get to Glenn, real quick, you're in New York, and everybody's being impacted in some way, but I think a lot of people are wondering what's it like to be in New York through it all.
Well, I mean, it's the numbers are staggering, and it just breaks your heart. The thing that the big problem in New York has been the hospitals have just been overwhelmed, and these people, what they're doing, these health professionals, the nurses and the doctors, it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. But again, the beauty from it is you're seeing the way the rest of the people are responding and doing whatever they can to help them, and I think people finally got the importance of the social distancing, and we're starting to see now perhaps numbers going in the right direction, and that's what we've been praying for a while now.
You know, Mike, it's really been an amazing thing to just sit back and observe all the responders and the hospital workers and even the people in the grocery stores and people in Home Depot and whatever it is. I mean, these guys are true heroes. You know, we live in a somewhat of a bubble as broadcasters where the pace is incredible. The pace is so fast, and all of a sudden it stops. And we all have to take a step back, and we're forced into this isolation to comply with what everyone is doing. What have you learned about yourself from a self-reflecting standpoint during these times?
You know, Glenn, I think what you just said is something we all have learned, in that we're always in the rush. We're always have something to do. We're always let's get this done and move on to the next thing. But it has enabled you to step back and kind of reflect a little bit more about what is important. And for me, the whole thing has been about relationships. I have desperately missed watching basketball, watching the sport that the three of us love so much. I can't wait to call my first game back. I know it's going to be really emotional. But the thing I've missed the most has been the relationships and being with friends. I miss you guys. I miss the next group that I was going to play against, not just the fellow broadcasters, but some of the coaches or players on the other team, a trainer, a PR person. You guys know, you go to certain arenas and it's like your extended family. You get to know ushers who are by your broadcast location. You get to know season ticket holders that you see year after year. It really is all about the relationships, and for me, this is really hammered at home, and that's what makes us go. That's what's most important. Not calling the buzzer beater in a big time game. It's the people that you establish these wonderful relationships along the way.
Well said. And I think we all miss that. Having said that, and I found this, I want to get your take. You find yourself also during this period of time catching up with people you haven't heard from in a long time because we were always go, go, go. Any stories like that you've heard from somebody or words of wisdom you've gotten from somebody that's helping you through this that you haven't been in contact with?
Well, Davey, exactly that. I've tried to make a few calls every day to people that I don't necessarily talk to all the time or have lost contact with. And one guy, it was such a wonderful talk. One of my first jobs out of college, I worked up in Poughkeepsie, New York. And even though I was working for a small radio station and mostly doing news, I got a job announcing Marist College basketball. But I wasn't a play-by-play guy. I was the analyst. And I mean, why I had any expertise of being an analyst, I don't know, but I loved it. And Marist was good at the time. Rick Smits was on the team. Rudy Bougarel, who was Rudy Gobert's father, was on the team. So it was a really fun time. But the play-by-play guy was a gentleman by the name of Dean Darling. And Dean became a great friend. He was a fantastic play-by-play guy. And I learned so much from doing TV play-by-play from Dean. Now, he could have gone to a network. He was that talented, but he loved where he lived. He was doing Marist College basketball and Army football. And he was also the sales guy for all the stuff. So there was no need for him to go anywhere. He was the ultimate big fish in a small pond and loved his life. So he never tried to go farther in terms of getting the next job and the next job. And he could have, because he was that talented. So I hadn't talked to him in a good long time. We had the greatest talk. And that's one of the really heartwarming things about this, is that you've been able to reach out and instead of having a quick 5-minute conversation with somebody, you're on the phone with them for an hour. And to be able to have that extra time has been wonderful at times.
You know, Mike, you mentioned analysts, and you know, you've worked with some tremendous talent out there. UB Brown, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, Walt Frazier, and a guy by the name of Glenn Consor 100 years ago.
Right.
I don't want to throw my name in there, but you and I think, I don't even know if it was a MAC conference game, but it was something like that. It might have been down south. I can't remember, but all those names, with the exception of me, you know, what brings out the best in an analyst? I mean, what have you learned from all these guys that you've worked with?
Well, everybody is different. Certain analysts like to get into the personal side of players. Certain analysts love statistics and throw a bunch of numbers at you. Certain analysts just want to do strategy with no numbers. For example, when I do a game with UB Brown, UB really likes to back up everything with numbers. He's got every number imaginable. So in my preparations, I don't do as many numbers in terms of my prep work, because he's going to handle all that. Whereas with Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy, they do very little numbers. They do more on the eye test. They do more on body language, more on, you know, strategy from coaching standpoint. So I do a lot more number preparation with them. And the beauty for me, and don't sell yourself short on that, Glenn. I mean, I learned from you. I learned from every analyst I've ever had. And for me, that's what I try and do, is bring that out on the air and have the analysts teach the viewer something. And it's amazing how much you can learn from the people that you work with. And what I love is it's different personalities and it's different styles to broadcasting. And to try and figure out what's the best way to bring that out in an analyst, that's one of the challenges of the job, but it's really one of the fun parts of the job.
You know, I grew up in the 70s when if you got a pair of Clydes, the tennis shoes, Clydes, that you know, boy, you were cool, because he was cool and he's still cool. And that's what's so amazing about. Give us a little insight into working with Walt Frazier, because he's always so warm and friendly, but he's still cool. Not everybody can stay cool their entire life, and somehow he's bottled it.
Cool is not even it's not even a term that people use anymore, but it's the perfect term for him. And he's going to be, or he just turned last week. I talked to him. He's holed up in his apartment in New York City. He just turned 75, and he's still cool. I remember, because he was one of my favorite players. I had a poster in my house growing up in Yonkers, in the garage, where me and my brothers, that was like our kind of workout area. And there's a poster up there. Now, my mother still lives in the same house as we grew up in. She's still there today. She's 87. And the poster's still up. It's still up in the house. So he was a big deal in my childhood. So now I get the call for the Knick job, and he's going to be my partner. And I was so nervous and intimidated until I met him. And the beauty of Clyde and Walt Frazier can be two different people. He is very introverted and shy. And at first, he was actually not nervous, but he was shyer around me than I was around him. And for some reason, and you guys know this because you work so well together, you work with different analysts, sometimes it just clicks right away. And for some reason, it just clicked right away. And he's a guy, even though he's got this unbelievable knowledge of the game, he likes to hear other people's opinions. So we would do games and he would ask me what I thought of this player or that. And I'm like, Clyde Frazier's asking me? But it just has been a wonderful relationship. And he's such a big deal in New York. I mean, he's been a part of the New York sports culture with his playing and his broadcasting for 50 years. And he's really one of the most beloved superstars of all time in New York City. And he embraces that so well. The way he deals with fans, his patience, his give and take. It's one of my favorite things of the job to watch. And funny, when we go to Washington, D.C. to do the games, as you guys know, we're up high. So we have to climb up the steps. One of my favorite things to do when we do games there, and it's the same thing in Philly because the broadcast location is up high, is I walk behind him as he's going up the steps, and I watch the crowd reaction when they realize, that's Clyde Frazier. And the people, and these are adults, they're like swooning because Clyde Frazier is walking up, because he has that cool factor, what a special player he was, but also the way he has become as a icon in New York, how we accept and embrace how the people want to be around him.
You know, Mike, I'm sure the three of us are all in the same boat with, and not just us, it's everyone just glued to our TV sets, watching the briefings, watching Fauci, what Fauci has to say, with anticipation. Look, we're all three of us are so passionate about what we do, want to get back to work. And, you know, we don't know. Nobody knows. And I'm going to ask you a question, which I know you don't know the answer, but just wanted to get your thoughts on this season that ended so abruptly because of this pandemic, and what your thoughts are on finishing the season off or when it could start back up again. And I know you don't know, so I just some insight.
Right. I think Adam Silver did a brilliant thing, Glenn, last week when they were asking him, he said, listen, I can't even think about making any type of decision until May 1st. So instead of this whole month of April, people asking him that question and him, you know, trying to give an answer or saying, I don't know. Hey, don't even bother him May 1st, because nobody does know. It can turn so quickly. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, the tide will turn to such a point that we'll get back sooner. But then again, it might go on for more months. So the question is, or the answer is certainly nobody knows. And anybody who says they knows is just full of it. But this is what I will say. They are going to really try to get the playoffs in. To say they're desperate, yes, they're desperate to get the playoffs in, but not to the point where if there's any sort of danger, I mean any type of thing that would impact one player, they won't do it. And I'm confident that Adam Silver is not going to go forward with any type of games, workouts, anything until he is told 100% from the experts, from the health medical experts, that it's okay and that nobody is going to be in any kind of danger. That's the one guarantee. He's not going forward until he gets that assurance.
I think that's probably the takeaway, that everyone should be encouraged by the NBA's desire and optimism to play again, but also the realism, again, how quickly the NBA suspended when it knew there was a problem. So clearly the NBA, while there's no way to be prepared for what we're dealing with now, they were, with the instantaneous decision that was made that night in Oklahoma City, they clearly didn't have in mind a plan.
You know what, Dave, it doesn't sound, I don't think it sounds overly dramatic to say that Adam Silver saved many lives by that decision that night, because he was the first one to step forward. He realized right away, okay, this is just one case, but this is going to be more. He already had information. He already had this information to help him make that decision so quickly. And by doing that, everybody else followed suit. Everybody wanted to continue games for more days, even if it was without fans. That was going to be the plan. But once he made that decision, that put pressure on everybody else to follow suit. And he just showed once again how fortunate we are that the NBA is in his hands, because we all have such trust and faith in that he'll always do the right thing.
You know, it's funny you say that, because, you know, you don't want to ever get political, but I got news for you, man. I would vote for that guy as a leader of anything, because, you know, we do have trust in him. He is a forward thinker, and he's transparent, and he's a listener. So he does get it. Mike, I got to ask you, though, about, you know, you were selected into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Kurt Gowdy winner. I got to tell you, I was so happy and so proud of you. But what would you tell young kids now that have aspirations to get into broadcasting. The game's changed. There's still some foundation. There's a basic understanding of the business, but it's changed. What would you tell, and what advice would you give to young people that want to be a Mike Breen?
Well, I think, Glenn, there's a lot of technical things you can tell them. I always tell kids about make English your best subject in school, because how you write, how you speak the language, your vocabulary is so important to what we do. Things like that, hands-on experience, all these things. But quite honestly, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier, I think such a big part in today is the way you treat other people. There are so many great play-by-play people out there, men and women. And, Dave said earlier, said the voice of the NBA. I'm always uncomfortable with that, because I don't think I'm the voice of the NBA. I'm the announcer for ESPN that does the finals, but the voice of the NBA for people in Washington is Dave. The voice of the NBA in Boston is Mike Gorman, Ian Eagle in Brooklyn. So there's so many talented, so many voices out there. And so the competition is very tough, because so many people are really good at this job. I've always felt, and this I get from my parents, the best way to be successful or to do things the right way is the way you treat people. And, kindness and respect in our industry is so important. And I've told a lot of college kids like this, I like to go back and speak at colleges, especially Fordham, and I'll tell them, you know what, there's a lot of people who are really good, who are as good as me and are better than me. But if somebody had a choice between picking a talented person who was tough to get along with and somebody who's good, but everybody gets along with, who do you think they're going to hire? So I know it sounds parental when I tell the kids this when I talk to them, but the way you treat people on a daily basis with kindness and respect, to me, is one of the essentials, not only in our field, but in any field.
Well said. It takes you a long way if you remember those tenets. You were just talking, we've all been doing this a while. What about the game that we get to talk about? It's certainly changed. Do you like the NBA product the way it is now? And I think I know the answer to that, but just it's a different product than it was when you started this job.
Yes, and you know what? I love, one of the things I love about basketball is the evolution of the way it's played. But it is not only played differently than when we broke in, it's coached differently. It's officiated differently. The way medical and training staffs for teams deal with their players is radically different. So it's different, but I do like seeing it in all different phases. Now, in terms of my own personal preferences, although the three-point shot is so amazing in terms of excitement, I do think we have too many players taking too many threes who have no business taking threes. Part of my love of the game is involving in post play. Now, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur, and I know I am, but I love post play, effective post players, the ball going inside to the post and coming out. And I love teams that are able to incorporate a little of the old style and today's three-point bombs. I don't love games where teams are just coming down and just throwing up three-pointer after three-pointer after three-pointer. And it goes in cycles, and it's going to go back, and eventually the postman is going to be huge once again. I know it will, because it always evolves. But I do love.
And you know what, Mike? It could be a 6'3" low post player that changes it back. You don't know.
You're right. One thing for certain, today's player, the athleticism and the talent, and even like so many players, the range on how effective they are from long distance, it's incredible how talented today's players are. And that's what I miss. I mean, we have such extraordinary players playing in our league today, and I can't wait to see them back out there. But it all changes, and to me, that's also one of the beautiful parts of the game.
All right, he's Mike Breen. Mike, we appreciate your time today. Any other words of wisdom as we're gonna get through this together somehow, some way?
All right, I want to ask you to help, because we're all getting through it. Everybody I talk to, I ask them, all right, give me a good movie recommendation and a good TV show recommendation. So I need one for both of you.
All right. Well, I'm going to go way off the charts. If you want a good laugh, The black and white Dick Van Dyke Show with Maury Amsterdam with his one-liners will get you through. But I kind of skew off the charts on that. I may be the only one with that suggestion. But you can find it on Amazon Prime, Dick Van Dyke.
No, I love that. Watch that show for years. That's a good suggestion. Carl Reiner, who wrote a lot of it, also made appearances in that show.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's a great one.
He was a genius. He was a genius, and he's like 98 years old, and he's living proof that if you keep your sense of humor, you'll live a long life.
Yes, him and Mel Brooks have this amazing relationship, those two.
Well, Mike, I think it's important that you do know something about my partner Dave. You know, a lot of people watch movies on the plane, or Dave has Kojak reruns. He has Gunsmoke reruns. Dave might have been born, Dave's an old soul. I mean, he watches the Dick Van Dyke Show. He's watching all this stuff. Barney Miller. He's watching all these rerun type things from the 60s. He's got them all, Mike. So I just wanted to share that with you. My thing is, I recently, I think we all need a smile, and I'm searching for on Netflix and all the other stuff, just comedy stand-ups. I just kind of fell in love with this guy, Sebastian Maniscalco.
Oh, yeah.
Very funny. Bill Burr, very funny. So I'm watching these stand-ups and I'm getting a kick out of them. But, I also like going back to the old movies, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I could watch over and over again because of Jack Nicholson's performance. So I'm a little old school there myself.
I like that as well, and I go back with a lot of stuff too. Well, I'm trying to think of the show. Movies like Gunga Din, I just watched recently, and Bridge Over the River Kwai and The Great Escape.
Classics.
I like going back to the classics.
We'll see if we can get this trending on Twitter. Then we'll know we're really hip and cool.
Although I have to admit, Davey, one thing, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I watched and enjoyed. I watched The Tiger King.
Yeah, well, I'm almost through it. And it's definitely a guilty pleasure.
All right. Now that you brought that up, am I the only person that was absolutely repulsed by that show?
No, I think Dave and I both were, but still watched it.
I couldn't watch that. I needed to take a shower afterwards, and it was like, and my son got into it. My son's home with us. He's 25. He made me watch it with him, and I watched it. And then after a while, I couldn't get past like 2 or 3. I was done. I called the timeout, and that was it for me.
You're a better man than we are. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it does draw you in because you can't believe how it can unravel, and yet it does. Well, Mike Breen, we thank you so much for the time, and please stay well and stay safe and get the power back on in your house.
Right back at you guys. I miss you. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Mike.
All podcasts on Wizards Radio 24/7 on the Wizards app, as well as SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Google Play. The Wizards Podcast Network can be followed on Twitter @WashWizardsPN, where now you have some suggestions to watch as we get through this together. For Mike Breen, Glenn Cottrell, I'm Dave Johnson. Thanks for spending some time with us on Full Court Press.